So imagine just scooping a massive heaping tablespoon of instant espresso powder directly into your morning coffee mug.
Oh, wow. Just the powder.
Yeah, just straight powder. You pour in hot water and you sit back expecting this like mellow, relaxing cup of drip coffee.
Right, because your brain just sees a small physical amount of powder and thinks, mild effect.
Exactly. But your nervous system is about to be sent into absolute orbit.
I mean, it's the ultimate optical illusion in the kitchen, really. You're judging an ingredient by its volume and totally forgetting that you're about to ingest this pure, unadulterated chemical concentration.
And that exact illusion is why so many of us are accidentally overdoing it when we try to implement these, so-called simple morning wellness routines. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way.
Yes, welcome. We've got a great one today.
We really do. We're looking at a deceptively simple daily habit, and it's guided by this really fascinating personal blog post. It's dated June 17th, 2026, by a writer who goes by the name Eng, and the post is titled The Ginger Ritual, Powder versus Fresh Slices.
Which, I mean, it sounds like a straightforward recipe critique at first glance.
Yeah, totally.
But it actually opens up this massive conversation about human physiology, plant pharmacology, and the surprising dangers of autopilot habits.
Right. We're going to break down why the specific habit of drinking warm ginger water works so incredibly well to boot up your system. Also, who needs to avoid this ritual at all costs?
Very important part of the piece, yeah.
Definitely. And we'll get into a pretty alarming realization the author had mid-draft about how to actually prepare it safely. But to really understand why this matters to you and your own morning routine, we kind of have to rethink how we wake up in the first place.
Absolutely.
Because I know a lot of us, and I'm definitely including myself here, we treat our bodies like a smartphone.
Right.
Like the alarm goes off, we swipe the screen, and we just expect our internal hardware to instantly jump to 100% battery.
Yeah, we treat waking up as a binary state, like you're either fast asleep or you're awake, highly productive, and ready to digest a massive breakfast. But human biology just doesn't work like a light switch. You don't just, turn on. You require a really complex, customized boot-up sequence to transition from dormant to active.
And a lot of us try to force that boot up sequence by staggering into the kitchen and just chugging a massive glass of freezing cold water from the fridge.
Which is, yeah, so common.
We think we're like shocking the system into consciousness. But Eng's post advocates for a gentle wake up using warm ginger water instead. Why is that warm, gentle approach so much better than the cold water shock?
Well, it comes down to understanding your body's transition state, right? Think about what's actually happening when you first open your eyes. Your internal core temperature is at one of its lowest points of the entire 24-hour cycle.
Okay, right, because you've been resting.
Exactly. Your digestive system has been largely resting, conserving energy. So if you throw a deluge of freezing cold water down into that dormant, cool environment, you're not just waking up the system, you're triggering a minor stress response.
Because the body suddenly has to deal with this freezing substance sitting right in the stomach.
Precisely. Your body immediately has to expend sudden, precious, early morning energy to heat that water up to your core temperature.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah, and physiologically, it causes vasoconstriction.
Meaning the blood vessels shrink.
Exactly. They literally tighten up in response to the cold. But a warm drink, that acts as a gentle thermal bridge. It causes vasodilation.
So it opens things up.
Yes, it opens those blood vessels up, easing you into the day by increasing blood flow naturally without, that massive metabolic shock.
It's basically just treating your internal organs with a little bit of respect before demanding they go to work.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
And what the author does next is brilliant. They use a single specific ingredient, ginger, to ride that warm thermal bridge and trigger a whole cascade of physical benefits. Eng actually lists a very specific set of perks they experience first thing in the morning.
Let's hear them.
So it rehydrates the body, stimulates digestive enzymes, improves motility, reduces inflammation, specifically like general stiffness or aches, and relieves nausea.
And if you look closely at the underlying mechanics of that list, it isn't just some random collection of wellness buzzwords.
Right.
Every single one of those benefits is targeting the exact physical deficits you experience after, lying horizontally in a state of fasting for 8 hours.
Right, because you wake up dehydrated just from exhaling moisture all night long. You need the hydration. But the concept that really stood out to me in Eng's post was motility.
Ah, yes.
Aang helpfully defines motility as the movement of food in your digestive system. And when I read that, I realized my mental model for digestion was just totally wrong.
How so?
Well, I think we tend to picture our stomachs like a blender. Like food goes in, it gets mashed up, and it's done. But motility is about movement. It's less like a blender and much more like a grocery store checkout conveyor belt.
Oh, that's a fantastic way to visualize it. I like that.
Right. Over the course of the night while you're sleeping, that conveyor belt is turned off, the motor is resting, but whatever groceries were left from the day before are still just sitting on the belt.
Stuck in transit.
Exactly. If you wake up and immediately dump a heavy breakfast onto that inactive highway, you're just creating a massive gridlock. Ginger water acts like the button that turns the conveyor belt motor back on.
It clears the lanes.
Yeah, getting the morning commute flowing smoothly before the rush hour actually hits.
And it does that by physically stimulating the gut. Like mechanical digestion relies on peristalsis, those wave-like muscle contractions that move things down that conveyor belt you mentioned. Ginger acts as a potent prokinetic agent. And prokinetic literally means promoting movement. It stimulates those gastric contractions.
So you're addressing the mechanical digestion right out of the gate.
Right. But what makes this single ritual act as like a multi-tool is that it's simultaneously addressing your muscular and joint comfort.
The inflammation and the morning stiffness Aang mentioned.
Exactly. Waking up stiff is incredibly common because inflammatory markers in the body naturally peak in the early morning hours while you're asleep. And ginger has powerful, well-documented anti-inflammatory properties.
Which really explains why the timing is everything here. Like, doing this first thing in the morning is the critical variable.
Absolutely. You're intercepting the sluggishness in the gut and the stiffness in the joints before they even have a chance to set the tone for your entire day.
And just as importantly, you're hitting an entirely empty stomach, right?
Yes. Those active chemical compounds in the ginger don't have to compete with a bagel or coffee or a bowl of oatmeal for absorption. They get a direct VIP pass right into your bloodstream and the lining of your digestive tract.
I mean, when you lay it out like that, it sounds like an absolute miracle cure. Just this warm, soothing, highly efficient cup of wellness to start your day.
It does, but
This is exactly where the source material takes a really sharp turn, because this whole digestive jumpstart has a dark side.
a very real dark side, yes.
Aang issues a stark medical warning in the post, and it's a crucial reminder that just because a remedy is pulled from the ground, that doesn't make it a harmless one-size-fits-all solution.
It's an incredibly vital caveat. I'm so glad the author included it.
Same. So Aang explicitly states that this ritual is contraindicated, meaning you should absolutely avoid it. If you suffer from stomach acidity issues like GEOD, acid reflux or ulcers, or just a generally sensitive stomach.
Right.
And on top of that, if you are taking medication for blood sugar or blood pressure, this warm ginger water will have, and I quote, significant effects.
Significant indeed.
And I have to admit, when I first read that, my instinct was to push back a little. Like, wait, so a common culinary root that you can buy for $1 in the produce section of literally any grocery store can actually interfere with serious doctor-prescribed pharmaceutical?
It's hard to believe, right?
It is. We are so deeply conditioned to believe that natural always means safe.
It's a trap so many well-meaning people fall into when they're trying to optimize their health. We tend to divide the world into two entirely separate buckets, food on one side and medicine on the other.
Right, like they don't cross over.
But your body doesn't recognize those categories. At a molecular level, your body doesn't read the label on the bottle. It doesn't care if a compound was formulated in a sterile laboratory or grown in dirt. It only reads the chemical structure.
It's just processing the data it receives.
Exactly. The active compounds in plants are incredibly potent chemicals. They don't magically stop interacting with your cellular receptors just because they're steeped in a mug instead of pressed into a little white pill.
Okay, let's break down exactly how this interference happens, starting with the stomach acidity warning. Why is ginger so bad for someone with acid reflux?
Let's go back to your conveyor belt analogy. We discuss how ginger stimulates the digestive system as a prokinetic agent, right? Turning that motor on.
Yeah.
Well, part of that mechanical stimulation involves encouraging the stomach to actively produce more gastric acid to help break down food.
Oh, I see.
So if you already have a biological baseline where your stomach overproduces acid, or if the valve between your stomach and esophagus is weak, which is what allows that acid to splash up and cause reflux.
Sending a potent acid stimulator down there first thing in the morning is disastrous.
Exactly.
Because there's no food in the stomach yet to absorb that extra acid. You're just churning pure acid on an empty stomach. You're basically throwing gasoline on a fire.
Precisely. You're aggravating the very condition you'd want to soothe.
Okay, that makes total sense for the stomach issues. But I'm stuck on this medication warning, specifically for blood pressure. Ginger is known to naturally act as a blood thinner, which lowers blood pressure, right?
It is, yes.
So if I'm taking a prescription pill specifically designed to lower my blood pressure, wouldn't a natural route that also lowers blood pressure just be an added bonus? Like, it feels like a feature, not a bug. Why not stack the benefits?
I am so glad you brought that up, because that is the exact logic that lands people in the emergency room.
Wait, really?
Yes. It's a feature of ginger, sure, but when you combine it with pharmaceutical drugs designed to do the exact same thing, you create a compounding effect.
A compounding effect meaning it works too well.
Exactly. The pharmaceutical was dosed by your doctor based on your baseline blood pressure. If you take that precisely measured pill and then drink a highly concentrated mug of active plant compounds that also thin the blood, your blood pressure doesn't just lower to a healthy level.
It just keeps dropping.
It risks bottoming out entirely.
Oh, wow. So you're talking about severe dizziness, lightheadedness, or even fainting.
Yes. The sudden drop can be incredibly dangerous, especially if you're standing up or driving. And the exact same synergistic danger applies to blood sugar medications.
Because ginger lowers blood sugar too.
It naturally lowers blood sugar. If you stack that with insulin or other glucose-lowering drugs, you can induce a state of hypoglycemia. The body simply cannot handle the overlapping chemical instruction.
Wow.
So the author's responsible disclaimer really elevates this from a simple recipe post to a masterclass in understanding your unique biological baseline.
It really does. It's so crucial. So assuming your baseline biology can handle the jump start, like you don't have ulcers, your blood pressure is normal, we finally hit the central dilemma of the source material.
The main event.
Right. How do you actually make this ritual without accidentally brewing a toxic potion? And this brings us to the great debate of the post. Powder versus fresh slices.
This is where we step out of human physiology and into the physical chemistry of your kitchen.
And it's honestly the part of the post that made me laugh the hardest because it's so relatable.
It really is.
Aang is writing this blog post detailing all the benefits, and mid-draft, they have this sudden, horrifying realization about the dosage they've been using. Aang notes that they usually just use ginger powder from the pantry.
Because it's easy.
Right, it's convenient. But while doing the research to write the post, they look up the actual conversion rate. And the recommended ratio is extremely small, like just 1/8 to 1/4 of a teaspoon of ginger powder is the chemical equivalent of a full teaspoon of freshly grated or sliced ginger.
It's a massive difference.
And Aang realizes, whoops, I've been using a lot more powder than a tiny fraction of a teaspoon.
It's a fantastic, deeply honest moment of self-correction.
Totally. Because removing that water weight doesn't just change the math in your measuring spoon. It completely alters the reality of what you're about to consume. It goes right back to that espresso powder analogy we started with.
Exactly.
We are so visually wired as humans. We view food by volume, not by its hidden concentration. We see a heaping teaspoon of powder, and our brain says, oh, that's a very small amount of matter. It must be a mild dose.
But our brains are totally ignoring the science of dehydration. It's a great opportunity for you listening right now to think critically about the physical state of the ingredients in your pantry.
Walk us through that.
Sure. When we talk about fresh ginger, we're talking about a rhizome, a subterranean plant stem. When you hold it in your hand, it feels incredibly dense and woody. It takes real physical effort to chop or grate it.
Yeah, it feels completely solid, like a little piece of wood.
It feels solid, but structurally it's mostly liquid. Fresh raw ginger is roughly 80% water.
80%.
80%. Water is what is taking up all of that physical space and volume in your hand.
So it's basically a spicy water balloon trapped in a fibrous net.
That's essentially it. Now, think about the industrial dehydration process used to create ginger powder. You are stripping away all of that water weight, completely evaporating it.
Right.
What is left behind when 80% of the volume just disappears? You are left with a highly stable, tightly packed matrix of pure fibrous structure, essential oils, and unadulterated chemical compounds.
So when you scoop out even a 1/4 teaspoon of that dry powder, you're actually scooping up the condensed chemical firepower of a surprisingly large chunk of raw plant.
Exactly. Removing water entirely changes the chemical concentration of the ingredient. You're no longer dealing with a mild culinary additive. You're dealing with a potent extract.
So when Aang was tossing in large, unmeasured amounts of powder every morning, they weren't just making a warm beverage, they were basically brewing a medicinal-grade ginger concentrate.
Pretty much.
No wonder they noted that the powder can be a bit much. Which brings us directly into the sensory experience. Because that massive shift in chemical concentration dictates a massive shift in flavor, leading to Aang's final verdict.
Right. The concentration completely overrides the delicate balance of the flavor profile, yes.
And Aang breaks down the two distinct sensory experiences beautifully in the text. They describe the ginger powder as intense, concentrated, and slightly earthy, even leaning a bit bitter in some senses.
The heavy flavor.
Very heavy. In stark contrast, the fresh ginger slices are described as bright, sharp, zesty, and refreshing. So think about your own morning for a second. Which flavor profile would you actually want to wake up to? Do you want an earthy, bitter slap to the palate from the ultra-concentrated powder? Or do you want a zesty, bright splash from the fresh slices?
I think almost everyone naturally gravitates toward the sensory experience of the fresh slices, and there's a reason for that.
Oh?
When you pour hot water over fresh ginger slices, the volatile oils, the delicate aromatic compounds that get destroyed or muted during the dehydration process, they're instantly released into the steam.
Oh, that makes sense.
That brightness hits your olfactory senses in your nose, creating an aromatically uplifting experience. It literally signals to the brain's receptors that it's time to wake up and be alert.
So it's an entire sensory package, not just a digestive one.
Exactly.
And based on that, Aang officially makes the call in the post. They write, "Given the opportunity, I would recommend ginger slices over ginger powder. The fresh, zesty experience wins."
It's the clear winner.
And this is a massive but. They end the entire piece with one final, incredibly pragmatic caveat. Aang writes, "Again, this depends on the availability and convenience of the ingredient."
And honestly, if we pull back and connect this hyper-specific debate to the broader picture of human behavior and habit formation, that final sentence is the most important takeaway of the entire deep dive.
Really?
Yes. The absolute best morning ritual is the one you can actually maintain.
Perfection is the ultimate enemy of the good.
Always. We spend so much of our time optimizing every little detail of our lives. We read a post that says fresh ginger is chemically and aromatically superior, and we immediately decide, okay, my new rule is I must only use fresh ginger from the farmer's market.
Right. Nothing else will do.
But life isn't optimized. What happens on a random Tuesday morning when you're running late, the dog threw up, the kids are screaming, and you realize you forgot to buy fresh fruit at the store?
It's game over.
Exactly. If your rigid rule is fresh or nothing, your healthy ritual simply dies that day.
You just throw your hands up and go right back to chugging the freezing cold water out of the fridge. Habit broken.
Right. But look at Aang's pragmatic acceptance of convenience. Using the powder when necessary, simply because it's shelf-stable, cheap, and always just sitting there in the pantry, that flexibility is the real secret to maintaining any long-term habit.
Having a backup.
Yes. You establish an optimal ideal, which is the fresh, zesty slices, but you also give yourself permission to use a highly accessible fallback plan, which is the powder.
Just, measured correctly this time.
Exactly. 1/8 to 1/4 of a teaspoon.
Please.
But it shows a mature, realistic approach to wellness. True health isn't about rigid perfection. It's about consistent application over time, even when conditions aren't perfect.
I love that. So as you think about your own morning boot-up sequence tomorrow, let's recap the vital insights we've pulled from Aang's deep dive into the ginger ritual.
Let's do it.
We've learned that a simple mug of warm ginger water is a powerful multi-purpose tool. It acts as the switch to turn your digestive conveyor belt back on. It gently rehydrates you through a thermal bridge that doesn't shock your system, and it actively fights the natural peak of morning stiffness and inflammation.
Provided, of course, that you've honestly evaluated your biological baseline.
A crucial point, yes. If your stomach already struggles with acid reflux or ulcers, or if you take specific pharmaceutical medications for blood pressure or blood sugar, this potent little root is not your friend.
No, it's not.
It's a highly active chemical compound that will dangerously compound with your prescriptions. And finally, if you do decide to implement this ritual, you must respect the powder.
Respect the powder.
Remember the physical chemistry of dehydration. A tiny microscopic pinch of powder goes a very, very long way compared to a handful of fresh slices. Don't fall for the optical illusion of volume.
Absolutely. But Before we wrap up today, I want to linger on how the author Ang actually discovered their dosage mistake in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
Ang only realized they were using way too much powder because they sat down to write a blog post about it. They had to externalize their routine to see its flaws,
Right.
which leads to a really compelling question for you to mull over. What daily autopilot habits do you have right now where you might be unknowingly overdosing?
Oh, that's an incredible point.
We all have them. It might be a physical ingredient in your kitchen. Maybe you're pouring double the required amount of coffee, or even laundry detergent just out of sheer muscle memory.
Yeah, totally.
Or maybe the overdose is psychological. Are you unknowingly overdosing on the amount of negative news you consume in the first 10 minutes of waking up?
Oh, guilty.
Right. Are you overdosing on the amount of stress you absorb before you even leave your driveway? We run these complex, deeply ingrained boot-up sequences every single morning without ever stopping to look at the underlying code.
Wow.
Sometimes, the simple, mundane act of documenting our routines, just writing them out on a piece of paper like Aang did on a random Wednesday in June, is the only way we discover what we're actually doing to ourselves.
That is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Taking 10 minutes to just pause and read your own source code.
Exactly.
Because it turns out the most important part of your morning boot-up sequence isn't how fast you can get the system running. It's knowing exactly what programs you're choosing to run in the first place. Thank you so much for joining us today. Stay curious, keep examining those daily rituals, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.